Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this video in which we are going to be looking at Holy Priest, played on the 12.1 PTR in a level 15 Blinding Veil dungeon. The purpose of the video being to give you sort of a brief overview of Holy Priest as a class in the next patch cycle. I think most of the tuning has already concluded, at least on an ability layout level. So I don't think we will be seeing any major changes in terms of how the classes function. We might be seeing some additional changes in terms of the power of the classes, which is good. Speaking of power of the classes, Holy Priest has felt pretty powerful to me in the next season. So I think with the new Oracle Renew focused build, Holy Priests are really looking at potentially reclaiming their moment in the sun. If, of course, by moment in the sun we mean that they are very satisfying to play, that they are quite potent, and you can pack with them really well, and they are just generally a satisfying healer. What we don't mean is that they are going to be the meta healer in the next season, which is almost impossible to happen. Now, for that to happen, so first of all, because they don't have a poison dispel. If you don't have a poison dispel in the next season, you will have a problem, or at least you will be disadvantaged compared to the other healers which is every healer except for priests. So only your disciplined fellows will also run into the same problem, but they have some other advantages in pain suppression and so on, void shield, over Holy Priests, so that they will likely still be preferred over Holy Priests. That being said, the healing power of Holy Priests, all the flaws and problems of their toolkit notwithstanding, is overwhelming in Season 2. I personally have not felt safer on my other healers, and I've tested all the healers, than I feel on my Holy Priest. Because you essentially with your rework of the Benediction Apex talent, you can now deterministically trigger Benediction outside of Apotheosis. And this means that whenever you cast Holy Word Serenity, the next flash heal will turn into Benediction, and Benediction can also stack up to 2 times. Which is just extremely powerful, because you can essentially plan out your rotation in such a way that alternating between Benediction and Serenity always leaves you with a very powerful heal available. Now, another thing that's favorable about Holy Priests in Season 2 is that you will be granted Guardian Spirit each time that you cast Divine Hymn. So that's just an overall change that has been made, which means that channeling Divine Hymn is now significantly safer than it used to be in Season 1. And as we do a pretty big pull here, you can see we pull the Hydra. She does these beams, similar to the second boss in Skyreach in Season 1. As I get disoriented here, I'm not exactly sure what does that. And the Belcher puts out his big AoE damage, so my Divine Hymn is also not enough here to save him. I think I have aggro from the Hydra, do I? I think the tank does not have aggro on the Hydra, because it just meleeed me here. The Belcher, which is the big belly guy in the middle there, has a big AoE hit, which is a ticking hit. I think it has 4 to 5 ticks, cast relatively frequently. You really need to be ready for that, otherwise it's very problematic. And especially if the beams, that's what's happening here, the beams layer on top of the AoE hit from the Belcher, and then individual players who are targeted by the beams, but also the AoE going off, will take extremely high amounts of damage. So it will probably be pulled somewhat like this on live servers at the higher key levels, because you can't pull them separately. But this overlap between Belcher and Hydra is definitely something that is going to require the correct usage of defensives. As you can see here, the hit from the Belcher alone is already very dangerous. And you can also see that Holy Priest, yeah, it's better now than it was before, especially since we're playing Oracle with a lot of Prayer of Mendings, and Prayer of Mendings also having a strong initial heal now. But you still sort of need to stand still while casting as a Holy Priest, and with the Belcher, he always makes you dodge these sort of ground puddles. That becomes quite a bit more challenging when playing Holy Priest. So yeah, some of the class's weaknesses are still there, for sure. But overall, I'm quite happy with the healing profile. As we move here into the next boss, it roots, unfortunately, and not really sure why that is. Phantasm, so your Fade Snare Dispel does not work on this ability. So unfortunately, as a priest, you cannot escape these roots on the ground, and they need to be damaged down. The boss always does his Verdant Stomp, decent AoE damage, and now he spawns the roots around players. They need to clump up, move together, and these roots then need to be DPS down. They do quite heavy damage, so if a group fails to stack up appropriately, then be prepared to do some absolutely massive healing. And also, if players stack too close or run into one of these roots on the ground while this is happening, then two roots stacked on top of each other can become very difficult to heal very quickly. Now, in terms of the tier set for Holy Priest, I think for this Oracle build, it's actually not that great, the 4 set. So the 4 set basically increases the power of Renew, which is good because you have Renew all over. But it also makes it so that your Prayer of Mending leaves Renew on the targets, which is sort of a dead ability or a dead point, because you also skill Lasting Words usually, which makes it so that any target healed by your Holy Word Serenity will also be applied Renew. And because every time you cast Holy Word Serenity, as we run Ultimate Serenity, everybody will be healed by it. This means that casting Holy Word Serenity will apply Renew to the entire party. And therefore the 4 set is sort of a bit invalidated, because you don't really need it to be applied from Prayer of Mending, because you cast Holy Word Serenity all the time anyway. But yeah, and it's not necessary. You can see I'm stuck here in the roots, unfortunately, because nobody is DPSing them. And I don't have time to do that myself, so I almost die. This boss is probably one of the more difficult ones, probably one that you would want to lust, because yeah, if mistakes happen here in terms of the stacking up and so on, can become pretty difficult pretty quickly. Also, healing requirements in this encounter pretty high, at least in some of its phases. While in other phases you don't really have anything to do. Yeah, anyway, so the Renew maintenance is a non-issue. Obviously, other builds may emerge. Archon is also viable, from what I understand, on the PTR. I have not personally tested it out, because I like this build very much. As our DK gets knocked off the map, but doesn't die. That's a bit strange somehow. Probably you get carried back up if you fall down here. That's the only explanation I have for that. And then arguably other versions of Holy Priest, other talent builds, will probably be able to benefit from the 4 set more strongly. But be that as it may, good for the first week if the 4 set is not strictly required. It also increases the healing of Renew. And yeah, because you have Renew on all your teammates all of the time, and you also run Oracle with double Prayer of Mending, you can see there is a lot of stuff on your teammates in form of Renew and Prayer of Mending that does healing, even if you're not pressing any buttons. And that is something I think that Holy Priests have direly needed. Just sort of some background maintenance, healing over time effects, so that you don't have to cover everything reactively. Now granted, You still have to cover most things reactively. Your background healing, despite the focus of the tier set on renew, is anything but overwhelming, but it's also not poor. So I think it's definitely an improvement, as we need to move into these blossoms here, or otherwise they will start pulsing AoE damage. And you need to move into them very quickly. You see the hunter did go in, but it's too late. So I have to heal double here for the AoE damage, because the hunter failed to move into the blossom, and also this AoE damage, which planetly goes out every time afterwards. So I sort of pre-channeled my Divine Hymn for that one, and then was able to get through it quite comfortably. I think I very much underuse Apotheosis as a Holy Priest, because it's such an extremely powerful spell that just from an efficiency and damage dealing perspective, you want to use it almost on cooldown. But I treat it more like an absolute emergency cooldown, which I think is not the correct thing to do. And now you can see we are late for 2 blossoms, so yeah, okay, I wanted to pause the video, but I was still in OBS and I paused my OBS recording. So yeah, we are back. I mentally prepare for the big AoE damage by using my trinket here, which applies a 50% damage reduction to all players in the party until a certain amount of damage has been absorbed. Extremely powerful trinket. I think it will become the meta trinket in the next season. It's sort of called Soul Coiler's Ritual Vessel or something. And it drops from the first boss in the raid, which I think is a great change of pace, because then it will also be acquirable by most players even then. As I typed to the group that we should generally get into the blossoms faster, because yeah, the last time I had to heal 2 of them, because although you would ideally want to have to heal none of them, as is the case now. You can see all blossoms have been soaked, and this makes this phase of the boss fight significantly easier, because you only have to deal with this AoE damage and not with the pulsing damage from the unsoaked blossoms on top of it. And for dealing with these kinds of big AoE damage events, I would say Holy Priest is currently excellently suited, because yeah, you have the renew, you have the all over the place bouncing Prayer of Mendings, you have the initial heal from Prayer of Mending if reapplication should be in order, and then you have the extremely powerful AoE healing from your Holy Word Serenity, and the concomitant Benediction, which you can then always cycle from Holy Word Serenity into Benediction and sort of alternate the two, which I think is just it's really powerful, and I encourage you to try it out when Season 2 goes live, or even on the PTR, from a perspective of how powerful Holy Priest's rotation feels. It's currently, I think, in a pretty good spot. As we move on here into the next area of the dungeon, which is an easier one. So these mobs here don't do very much. They have a tank hit, which in my experience is not very dangerous. And then these luminous thorn maws also have a frontal. You can see it here. It's also not very dangerous, but it's pretty big, so you need to be close to them, or otherwise you might get caught in it and be one-shot or almost one-shot, especially since it's also a channel spell. So if you get 2 ticks of it, you will probably die. Other than that, this is the easiest area of the dungeon, because these mobs don't do very much. So you can really focus on dealing some damage as a Holy Priest here. I'm not actually sure how Holy Priest stacks up to its peers in terms of damage dealt. I haven't actually paid that much attention to it, and I'm also very much focused more on the healing aspects of the game right now, so I'm not perfectly qualified to make a statement about how exactly the different healers rank in terms of their damage dealing potential. That being said, Evokers seem to me very strong candidates for edging out the win in that regard, because Evoker damage seems to be really, really crazy strong. So much so that it's very obvious, even if you're not paying attention to damage, that you deal a lot of damage. So yeah, that's something exciting. I think it's good that Evoker sort of reclaims some of its core identity in that way. As we move on here into the next area of the dungeon, again we have the Sporelight Belcher, Spouting Flore or whatever it's called. It's going out right now. And this is the AoE damage I was talking about earlier as well. And you can see, yeah, with our rotation and also the Prayer of Mendings and Renew, much of this is just being counteracted quite easily. And if these players were not getting hit by additional damage, then it would be even safer. But again, yeah, it's also the problem, move out of the frontal. You have to stand still as a Holy Priest to heal sometimes. And it got really dangerous for the DK and for the Rogue because of that. Probably I should have finished the cast, but I was a little bit scared to do so. So yeah, these sort of core weaknesses of Holy Priests are definitely still present. But yeah, anyway, I think Holy Priests are becoming significantly more satisfying in the next season, regardless. So we already knew that there's no massive rework in the works, and yeah, we should therefore look toward contentment in what we are getting. And with this sort of expectation setup, within this sort of expectation setup, I think we are getting a pretty good deal as Holy Priests. Now this boss is interesting. It's a 3-phase fight. The first one is this light fire phase. You can see it spawn here around us. Currently you can just stack up, and then the tornadoes will all spawn in the same spot. Makes the fight significantly easier. I think they will keep it this way. It's an interesting optimization problem, because you also need to spread out for other parts of the fight. And yeah, so you should stack up there. This phase of the fight, he will do his AoE hit, and then he will cycle into pulverizing strikes, which is this. You only need to make sure to not get hit by 2 of them, because it stacks a debuff on top of you that the next one will deal 100% more damage, I think, or 200%. So on higher key levels it will be one shot. And this one is an AoE bleed that only disappears when it's being dispelled, when it has been dispelled, or when the player has been completely healed. So you want to time your big AoE heals with this bleed, as I struggle to heal the hunter up here, in order to be able to dispel it almost immediately. And I think also here Holy Priest's Toolkit is quite well suited for doing that, because you can just use your big Holy Word Serenities for that purpose. Yeah, this is a little bit more dangerous here. Divine Hymn, you can see, not quite enough to sort of power through this bleed. Divine Hymn, yeah, more of a preparatory nature. It is a good heal, but it's not an absolute lifesaver in a pinch. And then the final phase of the fight here for the boss, he will cycle into all of his abilities from the first phase, which is this light fire, and then also from the second phase, which is the Grievous Thrash, which is going out now. He will do all of them. So this might become a Bloodlust phase on live at the higher key levels, but maybe not. It's not actually that difficult in my experience, if you know what you're doing as a healer and if you can expect the spell sequences before they occur. So also here, Holy Priest seems quite well matched in order to be able to heal through this, which would suggest that the plethora of buffs that the class has received, albeit most being flat healing buffs, are actually working to an extent. So because the class is definitely quite powerful. And also, which we haven't talked about yet, if you look at my mana bar, so this is a high damage fight, right? I'm not concerned with mana here. I am using everything that I have. And that means casting Flesh Heal a lot, or Benediction a lot, casting my Holy Words, and casting generally every spell in my toolkit. And you can see that despite the relatively high incoming damage, my mana bar is not moving. Actually, it's not just barely moving, it's not moving whatsoever. So I'm not sure if I could play this in a more mana-intensive way. I don't think I could. So you will not have any mana problems as a Holy Priest in the next season, from what I can tell. Because, yeah, look at this fight. Unfortunately, I don't have my current encounter healing meter on the left-hand side. We can see if it goes up after the fight. I'm not sure. No, it's actually also live, right? Yeah, then I don't exactly know, but in any event, I don't think it was a low HPS fight. So, yeah, despite delivering close to maximum healing, mana bar is unaffected. So yeah, I think that's a very good development for Holy Priests, because that was one of my main frustrations with Holy Priests in the previous season, is that you had these very high mana spells, like Prayer of Healing and Flash Heal, and you also had to use them because you didn't have any lower cost alternatives that could be used in their stead. So you were locked into a high mana cost rotation without any agency over making this rotation less mana intensive. So yeah, I think good on them. If it's a good thing that mana is a non-issue, completely debatable. The value of having a mana drain, generally debatable. I think I kind of like mana, but I haven't thought about it that much. In any way, one less thing to worry about as a Holy Priest, and it's also good that Holy Priest is the class that has this problem removed, because Holy Priest was also the class that couldn't do anything about it. Yeah, you didn't have other spells that you can use, and you still don't. So if your rotation is very mana intensive, then yeah, what you're gonna do about it? You're just gonna run out of mana, because yeah, there's no alternatives. So I think that's good. Maybe this is also mainly driven by Prayer of Healing not being a thing anymore. At least in this Oracle build, you don't skill Prayer of Healing at all. This also makes the class more fast-paced and also more mobile, which I enjoy. Very frustrating if you have to cast a lot of prayers of healing, and have to move at the same time, and then the group dies because you cannot heal through the AoE damage requirements or AoE healing requirements, but at the same time you must move because of ground effects. That was one of the main points that were unsatisfying about Holy Priest in the last season, in my opinion, and about the dominant Archon hero talent build, and that's no longer the case here. So one more weakness removed. As we move into the final boss, also pretty straightforward, but the orbs must not reach him, and they do here, as you can see. So that's something that is quite difficult to heal through if it happens. But again, Holy Priest, quite excellently suited for doing so. You have boundless AoE healing, it feels like, even without having any cooldowns available, although I did use my Divine Hymn here. And the group needs to be diligent here for soaking, and then the lashers need to be killed, and then the beam from the boss needs to be on top of the lashers after they have died, in order to remove them from the fight. Otherwise they will be resurrected. By the way, these damage orbs, again we have some going off, give you a healing buff and a damage buff, but also put a damage over time effect on you. So as a healer, yeah, in a perfectly optimized game, you probably shouldn't take any of them, because DPS loss. So if you need damage to time the dungeon, I guess you shouldn't. And if everybody else is doing that too, which is questionable sometimes. If you can take them, and if you think the additional healing is valuable, then you can also take them, and maybe two, and you will have 40% more healing, which obviously helps tremendously with the large amount of damage that is going on, and also with potentially recovering from any exploding orbs if they do reach the boss. However, if I remember correctly, this time we don't have an orb reaching the boss. So this damage that is currently going on is only damage that comes from the ticking of the collected orbs, which is the ticking damage over time effect on the individual players. As we finish out this boss fight, In my opinion, Holy Priest, one of the smoothest rotations for sure. This won't be the meta spec, definitely won't be, for a multitude of reasons, but it's a ton of fun to play. Sorry if the analysis is still a little bit superfluous, maybe? No, not superfluous, undetailed. I'm not super deep into the talent interactions and so on of Holy Priests yet, but I hope you anyway got some initial insight into how Holy Priests play out on the PTR and presumably also then in Season 2 at large. With that being said, thank you very much for watching this video and have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.